Hi, I am Melissa Dees. I am 40 years old, a little bit old for college, but here I am. I live in Crawfordsville and I have 4 children, 3 boys and a girl. My oldest just graduated from high school this past spring. My youngest will be in second grade, so we always have a lot of activity going on in our house. I was not born in Indiana. Growing up, I lived in Utah, Arkansas, South Carolina, and I ended up moving to Indiana when I was 20. I had been living in Logan, Utah, going to school at Utah State University, and I decided to move here to be closer to my parents and my family. At the time, I planned to finish my education here in Indiana, but life, of course, had other plans for me. So instead, I met my husband, we got married, had kids, and now we have been happily married for 19 years. The artifact that has significant meaning to me was given to me by my now husband almost over 19 years ago, shortly after I moved to Indiana. This ring signifies the first time that I truly listened to my gut and made a spontaneous decision that would change my life forever. It also helped me realize that sometimes the things that I think that I want may not always be the things that I actually want or need at the moment. I met my husband about 6 months after I moved to my parents in Crawfordsville. I was new to the area and I didn't really know anyone. I was working full-time to save money for school and was focused on my future rather than on meeting people. My husband and I met at the grocery store that I worked. He would come in and he would buy small things like a pack of gum or a soda, and would wait in my line, even if it was the longest line in the store. Finally, he asked me out, and I said yes. At the time, I was getting ready to move to Lafayette to go to college and start a new job, but I thought it would be nice to have a friend, and he was really nice, so, what the heck. We went out, we hit it off, and we ended up dating. And he's actually really lucky to have gotten a second date because he took me to see Vampire in Brooklyn on our first date, which was the worst movie ever. So bad impression right off the start. But we ended up going out, getting along. He helped me move into my new apartment in Lafayette. And by that time, he pretty much told me that he wanted to marry me. I was happy with dating, but I wasn't keen on the idea of marriage. I had always told myself that I was never going to get married. I was never going to have children. It was just not my plan. I am a very independent person. I like to be in control of every aspect of my life, and I felt that a husband would just take away from that. I didn't want to have to answer to anyone, and I just wanted to be a successful, independent, strong woman who didn't need anyone. So, of course, things happen. The place where he was working ended up closing, so he didn't have a job. We decided that he could move in with me and would look for a job in Lafayette to be closer to me, so that way he didn't have to drive to visit me. I didn't have to drive to visit him. It just seemed like the perfect solution. Then the hours of my work got cut, and I ended up having to work the night shift. We still weren't making enough to get by, so we ended up having to use some of my college savings in order to pay rent and get groceries. And on top of that, his car ended up breaking down, so we ended up having to share a car. So once it was time for me to start school, I had to make a decision. If I wanted to be a full-time student, I would have to cut back on my hours that I was working. But if I cut back on my hours that I was working, I wouldn't be able to afford rent and food. So, we'd already been using some of the savings. So it was at that point that I knew it just wasn't going to work. So I made that decision to, instead of going to college, I was going to work and work to support us. He wasn't very happy about that idea. He really pushed for me to go to college. He's been pushing me for years to go back, and now I'm finally going back, but he really wanted me to go. But it was my decision. Big, strong, independent woman. I didn't do it. I said, no, I'm going to work. So I went back to work. I ended up moving back to Crawfordsville to work because I wasn't getting enough hours and I can't stay in night shift. So we moved back to Crawfordsville. We were still sharing a car. And one day I had to work. He didn't have to work, but he insisted on driving me to work, which was weird because he had to get up early to drive me to work. And that was kind of unusual for him, but he was very insistent that he drive me to work this day. So he drove me to work. And when he picked me up in the evening, he had one of those little plastic containers from the gumball machines that are in the lobbies of the grocery store. And he gave it to me, which, he's kind of a dork, so I didn't think anything of it. I just kind of laughed a little bit and, held on to it. But he kept telling me to open it. So I had opened it, and inside was this little antique diamond ring. He had gone to his mom and told his mom that he wanted to ask me to marry him. But he didn't want to ask me unless he had a ring. And we just didn't have the money. So his mom gave him this ring, which belonged to her mother, and was given to her when her mother passed away. And he gave it to me. And honestly, this ring was the best thing he could have ever given me. It just meant so much to me that he would trust me with the ring that had belonged to this woman who had meant so much to him. So against everything that I believed in, I said yes to him when he asked me to marry him. We ended up getting married on April Fool's Day, less than a year after we'd met. And my parents proposed to the wedding. Everyone kept telling me that it was never going to work. And here we are, almost 20 years later, still married. And I did not lose my independence. I'm still as independent and bossy as I ever was, if not more so. Eventually, I would like to pass this ring down to my daughter when she's old enough to understand the significance behind it. I want her to use this ring as a reminder to know it's okay to be independent. It's okay to need someone too. It doesn't make you weak. It just makes you human. I hope that someday she finds someone that drives her crazy, makes her happy, exhausts her, and completes her, just like I have. If her dad ever lets her find someone like that.